The snow was red that morning. Not from sunrise, but from the wound of a man who shouldn't have been alive. He lay half buried in the frost, his breath trembling against the winter air, a name tag reading Carter barely clinging to his torn uniform. Bootsteps crunched closer. German voices. He shut his eyes, waiting for the final bullet. But instead, a hand touched his shoulder. Gentle. Hesitant. And a voice, calm, foreign, trembling between duty and mercy, said softly. Bleiben Sie ruhig, you'll live. He didn't know it then, but the man kneeling over him was about to change his life forever. Winter, 1944. Somewhere on the Belgian front. The Battle of the Bulge had turned forests into graveyards. The world smelled of smoke, gunpowder, and frozen blood. Private James Carter, a 24-year-old medic from Kansas, had been separated from his unit after an ambush. He'd seen his friends fall one by one, their faces swallowed by snow. Don't stop. Don't stop. That was all he could tell himself. Every breath felt borrowed. By the time he collapsed near a frozen stream, his uniform was stiff with ice. He thought it was the end. It would have been, if not for the man who found him. A German field doctor, Dr. Ernst Kohl, aged 42, assigned to a small forward medical post. Ernst had seen enough death to know when it didn't need to happen. But this was an enemy soldier, wounded and alone. Helping him would be treason. Still, something in him refused to walk away. Let knock, Ernst whispered to the orderly beside him. He's still alive. They dragged Carter into a ruined farmhouse serving as a makeshift infirmary. The smell of disinfectant mixed with blood. Cries of German soldiers filled the air, some begging, some silent forever. Carter drifted in and out of consciousness. Every sound felt like thunder. Every touch, a test of whether he'd live or die. He woke to a dim lantern swinging above him, and the cold stare of the German doctor. For a moment, there was silence. Only breathing. Then, an injection, a bandage, a whisper he couldn't understand. Warm. Carter managed to croak. Why, help me. The doctor paused. His face unreadable. Then he said quietly, almost to himself. Because you would have done the same. Carter didn't believe him. But that day, something changed. When Carter next woke, the world had gone gray. Snow pressed against the broken windows. He was in a German field hospital, surrounded by men who, days ago, had tried to kill him. He couldn't move much. His leg was bandaged tight, stitched with German precision. He could smell boiled cabbage, morphine, and the faint scent of soap, something rare in war. Every so often, the doctor came by. Not to gloat. Not to interrogate. Just to check the wound, adjust the bandage, or leave water by the bed. You shouldn't be here, Carter muttered once. Ernst simply said, neither should I. Through the cracked door, Carter saw pieces of life in the ruins. A nurse humming a lullaby. A young German orderly crying quietly after a soldier's death. A boy, barely 16, clutching his rifle like it was the only thing keeping him warm. Carter wanted to hate them all. But he couldn't. If this was kindness, he thought, why did it hurt so much? One evening, the doctor brought him a bowl of soup. Thick. Hot. Real. Carter stared at it like a mirage. He whispered, why are you doing this? Ernst looked at him for a long time, then said. Because my son is about your age. And he's somewhere out there too. That silence between them was heavier than the walls around them. Later that night, as bombs echoed in the distance, Carter overheard the doctor arguing with a superior officer. He's an enemy combatant, the officer barked. He's a patient, Ernst replied. And he stays alive. The officer stormed out. For the first time, Carter realized, this man was risking his life to keep him breathing. When the doctor returned, he looked different. Older. Tired. He sat beside Carter and asked, almost shyly. "Tell me about Kansas." So Carter told him, about the wheat fields, the river, the smell of rain on warm soil. And the doctor listened as if he were listening to a dream. "It sounds peaceful," Ernst said softly. "It was," Carter replied. "Before all this." Outside, the war raged. Days turned into weeks. Carter could stand again, barely. The leg would never fully heal, but he could walk. And he began to notice details about the doctor that made him human, not enemy. Ernst had a photograph pinned inside his coat. A woman and a young boy, smiling before the war. He never spoke of them, but every time a train passed in the distance, he would turn away, eyes glistening. "He's carrying ghosts," Carter thought. One evening, Ernst entered quietly, holding a small notebook. "This belonged to one of my patients," he said. "He was an American pilot. Crashed weeks ago. He died before I could save him." He paused. "Would you like to write something? For when they find you?" Carter hesitated. Then nodded. He wrote, "If anyone finds this, tell my mother I met a man who showed me mercy." The doctor smiled faintly. "Mercy," he repeated. "That's a good word." The front lines were moving fast now. Rumors whispered through the camp, Allied forces advancing. Everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the Americans arrived. But mercy has a cost. One night, an SS officer came for inspection. He saw Carter. He saw the bandages. And he saw the doctor standing protectively between them. "This is treason," the officer spat. "This man is my patient," Ernst said calmly. "He's the enemy. He's human." There was shouting. A blow. A gun raised. Carter tried to move, but his body refused. The officer stormed out, but the message was clear. The next visit might not end with words. The following morning, Ernst appeared with urgency in his eyes. "You must leave tonight," he whispered. "They're moving the wounded. The SS will search again. You won't survive if they find you." Carter shook his head. "I can't walk far." "Then crawl if you must. But you'll live." He pressed something into Carter's hand, an envelope. Inside is a note. "My name. My son's name. If you make it home, remember it." Carter's throat tightened. "You'll come too?" "No," Ernst said softly. "Someone must stay, to make it look like you died here." For a moment, they just looked at each other, two men on opposite sides of a line drawn by others. "Why?" Carter whispered. "Because one day," Ernst said, "someone will ask if there was any kindness in this war. And I want you to know the answer." That night, Carter limped through the forest, following the faint glow of distant artillery. Every step felt stolen. Behind him, the doctor stayed behind, waiting for dawn. When Allied forces reached the ruins 2 days later, they found Carter half-conscious near a burnt-out truck. He survived. But the farmhouse, and everyone in it, was gone. Spring, 1946. The war was over. Europe was a graveyard of silence. Back home in Kansas, Carter sat on his porch, the fields alive again with wind and color. But peace didn't feel peaceful. He kept the envelope on his desk, its edges worn, the ink faded from the doctor's hands. Ernst Kohl. Leipzig, Germany. Son, Lucas. Every night, Carter stared at the name. He wrote letters, dozens, but none came back. Then, one day, he received a small parcel from the Red Cross. Inside, an old photograph, creased and fragile. The same one he'd seen in the doctor's coat. On the back, a single line in German. "Erinnerst du dich? Do you remember?" Carter's hands trembled. He could almost hear the doctor's voice again, steady, kind, tired. He wanted to believe Ernst had survived. But the truth was uncertain, lost like so many others in the ashes of war. So Carter did the only thing he could. He remembered. He told his story to schools, to veterans, to anyone who would listen. Not about victory or defeat, but about mercy. About the man who crossed a line no bullet could erase. Years later, when Carter passed away, his daughter found that same envelope tucked under his journal. Inside, still folded neatly, was a note written in shaky handwriting. To the American soldier I saved, if you live, remember that once, even here, there was kindness. No one ever found what became of Dr. Ernst Kohl. Some say he died defending his patients. Others believe he escaped, lost among the ruins of a fallen Germany. But his story lived on, in the memory of the man he saved. Because war takes everything. Names, homes, dreams, even faith. But sometimes, it leaves behind one thing that refuses to die. Humanity. He begged me to remember his name, Carter once said. And I did. Because in that frozen farmhouse, in the middle of hell, I met a man who reminded me what being human means. War took everything, but humanity gave it back.